Go ahead, Jenny.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Virginia Harger. I'm the chairperson of the Charlottesville Planning and Zoning Commission. Today is Tuesday, March 29th, 2022, and the special meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission is being conducted entirely via Zoom, is hereby called to order. Protocol for today's meeting was previously reviewed by Corporation Counsel, who indicated to me it is compliant with the executive orders issued by the governor and fair for those watching from a remote location. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of
States
America,
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under
under
God,
God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice.
justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. I'll start off with the roll call of the commission. Please verbally indicate you're present when your name is called. Commissioner Kelly?
Present.
Commissioner Parkins?
Present.
Commissioner Lascos?
Present.
Commissioner Motto?
Here.
Commissioner Tiki?
Present.
Commissioner Onofrio?
Present.
Okay. Commissioner Usel?
Present.
Myself, Commissioner Harger. Mr. Rossetti, our administrator.
Present.
Mr. Panico, our consultant.
Present.
Attorney Teodoso, Corporation Counsel.
I am here.
Thank you. And Ms. Renassos, our recording secretary.
Present.
And Ms. Charbonneau, our stenographer.
Present.
And just for the record, Mr. Nappy, our downtown development coordinator, is unavailable for this evening's meeting. A couple of points before continuing with tonight's agenda. Mr. Rossetti will act as the Zoom meeting host, while commissioners will be able to make comments throughout the meeting. The chair asks that you please identify yourself and wait to be recognized by the chair before speaking to make sure we're not all speaking over each other and to make sure our recording secretary and stenographer are clear as to who is speaking. This evening, we have the opening of 2 public hearings on the agenda, and I'd like to share the protocol for each. Mr. Rossetti will indicate if any written comments were received from members of the public no later than 24 hours before the start of this evening's meeting. If written comments were received, they will be read into the record. The applicant and/or associates will make their presentation. The commission can ask questions during the presentation or at its conclusion. The applicant and/or associates can answer commission questions at the time they are presented or at the conclusion of the presentation. The public will then be recognized to comment on the application. The applicant's attorney and/or associates will be given the opportunity to address any comments or questions from the public after the last person from the public has been given the opportunity to speak. If the commission feels further information is needed from the applicant, the chair will ask for a motion to continue the public hearing. The public hearing remains open. The commission is not allowed to make any public comment, discuss any part of the applicant's and/or his associate's presentation, or receive any additional information from anyone. If the commission feels the applicant and/or his associates have answered all questions, have addressed all concerns from the commission and/or public, the chair will ask for a motion to close the public hearing. Staff will then schedule a discussion about the application at an upcoming commission meeting, during which time the commission will be asked by the chair on how it wants to proceed. I'd also like to share the guidelines quickly for members of the public who choose to speak at the point in the public hearing when the chair calls for public comment. Please use the Zoom's raise your hand feature to identify yourself as a member of the public who wishes to speak. After you're identified by Mr. Rossetti, please state and spell your name and state your address to assist the recording secretary and stenographer when doing the minutes and transcript of the public hearing. Please present your comments and questions, which need to be directed to the chair and the chair only, not to the applicant and/or his associates. Comments from the public should address specific criteria of the zoning regulations, the merits of the application, and be new information, not a repeat of comments previously presented. And finally, members of the public are expected to practice appropriate etiquette by being quiet, observant, and respectful. Disruptive attendees may be removed from verbally participating. Commissioner Motto, would you please read the legal notice for our first public hearing?
Sure.
Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Shelton, Connecticut hereby gives notice of a public hearing to be held virtually on Tuesday, March 29th, 2022 at 6 o'clock via Zoom to consider the following. First item is initiation of a hearing for the Planning and Zoning Commission to adopt a citywide one-year moratorium on the acceptance of applications, the use of land, built structures, or related activity to a cannabis establishment.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Amato. Mr. Rossetti, were there any comments from the public that we need to acknowledge for the record?
There were not.
No, okay. I understand that the zoning subcommittee met. Commissioner Amato, you're chair of that subcommittee. Can you report on the meeting and any recommendations regarding this proposal?
Sure. Yeah, we met on March 16th. That was Commissioner Parkins and Lascos, together with Alex Rossetti, our administrator, Tony Panico, our consultant, and Attorney Teodoso, to consider how we should move forward with this question of cannabis activities, businesses in the city. So, as we discussed, there's a lot of different kinds of businesses that this could involve. So we wanted to have some time to consider if we do want to have them in the city, where we would want to have them, what kind of businesses, and to be able to adapt regulations accordingly. And to give ourselves a good amount of time, given how very busy our city is with all of the activities going on, and how much our administrative staff, how much work they have to do. So that's how we came up with the 1 year idea. And as Attorney Teodoso had advised us, it could be much shorter, it could be much longer, but giving us a year, we thought if we decide we want to make it a shorter period of time, if we're ready to go, we can shorten it, but it wouldn't be as easy to lengthen that period of time. So there's, pluses and cons, as we had discussed, in terms of having its kinds of businesses that we also want to give due consideration to. And I don't know if either of the other commissioners would like to comment on that discussion as well.
Okay, first of all, let me just ask Attorney Teodoso, is there anything that you could add to Commissioner Amato's comments?
No, I think it was summarized quite well. The only legal footnote I'll put in is the way you would shorten it is by replicating what you're doing this evening, holding a public hearing, and just shortening the time period. So you would have some formality that you would need to go through in order to shut down the year, or I should say shorten the year. But other than that, I think that it was summarized quite well with regard to the discussion and suggestions of the subcommittee. Thank you.
Okay, and then was there an effective date that had been proposed?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Was there a proposed date, the effective date that this moratorium would begin?
Well, the moratorium has to, because it's a change in a zoning regulation, you have to have certain prerequisites established before the change goes into effect. I mean, you have to put it in the town clerk's office and you have to publish it. After that, you can say whatever day you want.
Okay. And just to clarify for everybody on the commission, anyone from the public that may be listening in, the step tonight, Attorney Teodoso, is it to accept the recommendation of the zoning subcommittee and close the public hearing, or are we?
Well, it's a public hearing for a zone change. So to the extent that the commission wants to act and it feels that it's gotten enough information, it can do that, just as it would with any other application for a zone change. Remember, there's an anomaly here. We are the entity that's proposing the zone change. So to that extent, you don't have to wait for the applicant to respond or get any further information. But if there's any comments from the public that cause you concern or rethinking as a board, if you have the votes, you could leave the public hearing open.
Okay. Anyone on the commission have any questions, comments, concerns?
Commissioner, I don't have a concern. I just wanted to know, it was mentioned that could it be more than a year on the moratorium, or?
Well,
Go ahead.
It could, in the sense that there have been some communities that have gone 18 months. I think Oxford went 18 months. That's the longest that it's been done.
Okay, so if we said a year and we find out that we still need more time, we can always extend it?
Right,
You
you're
would
doing
have
this,
to have, you would have to have another public hearing to do that.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Mhm.
Okay,
whether you extend it or shorten it, the process is the same.
okay, thank you.
Mhm.
This is Commissioner Ticky. With the zoning subcommittee's recommendation, I hear that it could be less than a year, but what was the consideration given to, a 9-month or less, which would take us to year's end? As we've discussed here, and we'll probably hear tonight, some other towns have taken this up to a varying level of a couple of months to 18 months out. So we've got templates of how other towns have handled this. The COGs have it, which I know you've mentioned, Chairwoman. So there is helpful information out there. There's templated information as every town is dealing with this. So is there any consideration, or was there any consideration to doing 9 months, which gives us all this calendar year to take it up?
I may jump in,
Sure.
Mr. Mato.
Jim Paco, clerk.
Yeah,
I think one of the reasons we went for the year was because the fact that we could make it shorter, if it needed to. We did talk about making a shorter period of time just to make sure that we don't have a missed opportunity if we, as a commission, do decide to allow it in wherever, however that conversation takes place. But the reason we didn't go, and the reason we didn't go longer, was because we didn't want to miss an opportunity. The reason we went a year instead of 9 months was because we thought we could just back it out if we didn't need that much time.
Mhm. Could you just explain what missed the opportunity that you're talking about, how you're framing?
So there's only so many applications that the state is going to grant. And from what I have been reading, there is a flurry of activity right now. There are entities that are submitting hundreds of applications because they can. There's no limit on how many applications one entity can submit. So they're really flying in at this point. So it could be that there are no more certificates to be given out to a municipality that is under a moratorium.
Mhm.
and the other thing is there's a 3% tax that the town can collect through the state for specific purposes, but on all the sales or revenue generated from that kind of a business. So that could be a significant.
But that has to go to a certain area.
Certain activities, yeah. It's youth programs, addiction
Right.
programs, mental health
It
programs.
cannot go into a general fund or something like that.
No, but it could go for your streetscapes.
I don't think I would recommend shortening it simply because the state has granted all the permits it can grant, because you don't know what the state's liable to do next month. So I think the commission's discussion ought to be taken to the end, and then whatever course of action they recommend, that's what we will implement. If you arrive at that decision in 6 months, we can implement a shorter termination and put whatever it is that we want to do in place. Taking the extreme, if the commission decides that they don't want any part of this and they want to enact the appropriate restrictions to it, that could be done in a shorter period of time.
Mhm.
Okay.
You need something that holds up regardless of what the state does.
Right. This is Commissioner Ticky. So should this commission expect then that this would be added after this public hearing is closed and we move past this moratorium, that how quickly would we then begin to talk about what these regulations look like? Is that going to be done across the commission, or is that also going to be taken up by the zoning subcommittee?
What would you recommend, Mr. Panico?
I would suggest that it start with the subcommittee, but certainly it needs to be put on the floor of the entire commission to discuss. The subcommittee is simply in position to make a recommendation. The commission is certainly has the discretion to accept that recommendation or to modify it.
Mhm. Attorney Teodoso, do you have any comments regarding that?
I think the way that you should look at it is the subcommittee is almost the applicant.
Mhm.
And in that fashion, the entire commission should be involved after recommendations. Because it is a substantial, if you will, policy decision on behalf of the city.
Mhm.
You all should be involved.
Okay.
And then what kind of input can we get during this process if we're starting with a subcommittee? Can we have a back and forth with the entire commission, with staff?
That's up to the subcommittee. If you
Okay.
think you need that back and forth, I would certainly solicit it.
Mhm.
If
And that
you-
can be done
if you reach a
informal.
point- If you reach a point of debate
Yeah.
on the subcommittee and you want some input and direction from the commission, then certainly it ought to be put on the agenda and talked about.
Okay.
So are you thinking if the zoning subcommittee came to a stalemate that they would?
No, not at all. But you
No,
know,
I
there's,
was talking to Tony, but
Oh.
I understand. No, go ahead.
yeah, there's so many different kinds of businesses. I mean, this could be a farming operation. It could be a
Mhm.
farm stand. It could be, something, big manufacturing type of packaging, warehousing. It could be any kind of business. So we have to think about all those possibilities.
I think the first major decision you need to make is, do we want to prepare regulations and authorize certain activities, or do we want no part of them?
Mhm. And that's what the zoning
And
subcommittee would.
That's the first
come back.
step.
Mhm.
If you decide that you do want to be part of it, then you begin to get into the nuts and bolts of it.
Mhm.
But I do think it would be valuable early on to solicit the rest of the commission's thoughts on that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Even if we're all in favor of going one direction, I think input from the full commission is very important
Oh, for sure.
before we get too far down one
Sure.
path or another.
Mhm. All
And I
right, so
think,
go ahead.
yeah, just one more comment to button that up. So as we, discuss this, so then if we can, on the agenda, when we have subcommittee updates, to hear from the zoning subcommittee or to have time to discuss it as a commission, just because when you look out at what other towns are doing, some had a 3-month, which started in January. So come March, they're open. Some did 6-month, which brings us to June, July. So to the point, I think Commissioner Parkins made, the longer you wait, and then all of the licenses are taken up, what we're basically doing is helping the regulations get nowhere by not welcoming these businesses. So if we can move faster than a 1-year deadline, as many of these towns are lifting it either now or in the summer in September, there is one town that's 18 months, but it's a range. So if we were to move as quickly as we move with other pieces of business here on this commission, we could take it up hopefully in the coming months.
Mhm.
I have one quick question about the length of the moratorium. If we did a 9-month, do we have the ability to extend that if we think that we need more time?
Yes. Yes, we would have to have another public hearing, and that would be a proposal to extend the moratorium, as from what I
And
understand.
that would not be unheard of.
Yeah, it's, others, towns have done that. So that's the appropriate technique, Attorney Teodoso?
Yes, I'll say it again. You're changing a zoning regulation. And if you shorten the time period, or if you lengthen the time period, you're changing the zoning regulation again. So whatever the prerequisites are the process that you need to go through. So when you think into the future and you hypothecate, maybe we'll do this in 9 months, maybe we'll do this in 6 months, give yourself some time in front of that, because you have to have the publication of the topic, you have to have the public hearing like you're having now, and then you have to have the lag time for the newspaper publication before it becomes effective.
Mhm.
The
Okay.
answer is yes. You do it
I
the
was
same.
not on, that was not my understanding. I guess I was a little confused in the discussion. I thought that we could just end the moratorium earlier. I didn't realize that we would have to have yet another public hearing to end it earlier.
Mhm.
But we would have to have one to extend it.
Do we have
Ruth,
to
I
have
think the
new
biggest
regulations?
explanation is if you decided that you wanted to put some regulations in place, you would be having a public hearing to put those regulations in place. And part of that public hearing would contain a clause relative to the termination of the moratorium. It's a
Okay.
simple matter.
Okay.
Going with Commissioner Tickey's train of thought, do we have to change or add regulations for this? And if we do we have like a format we go by?
Sorry, I didn't, do we have to change your what?
No, do
regulation?
we have to add regulations for this?
Yes,
Only if
Okay.
you want, right? Only if you want to. If you don't, then
in a
it
word.
would be treated like any other business. Is my
Okay.
understanding.
It would appear, Charlie, that no matter which way you go, whether you went in the direction of prohibiting them or whether you went in the direction of accommodating them, either one is going to require zoning changes.
So that would be like a new section for
If you're going to ban them, then you have to have something in your regulations that says that.
Mhm.
And if
Couldn't
you're
we
gonna
just
allow
add-
them, you have to have something in your regulations that says that. So either way, you're going to have to go into the regulations with something.
I would think prohibiting it would be a lot easier. We could just add recreational or
It-
adult use marijuana to our current,
It's relatively easy to do the prohibiting part.
right? Well, because we already have one on the books. We have a regulation on the books that prohibits
Medical.
medical marijuana.
Right.
Right.
So
Yeah,
we
that's
could
what
just
the-
add,
You have to parallel
Adult
that,
use.
but regurgitate the same circumstances.
right, but it would be much more complicated to allow it because we would have to, find an area that we would allow it, the type of, whether we would allow growing, whether we would allow
Yes.
sales,
And where we would allow that, right?
correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. All right, well, I don't think anyone will argue that it's a prudent thing for us to enact a moratorium because this is a brand new state statute that a number of towns are wrestling with, and we're no different. We have to see how this really affects us. So,
And many have jumped on the bandwagon already.
oh yeah, since last June. Yeah, it's been something that's I've gotten a lot of referrals from the NBCOG on. So, all right. So do we?
Excuse me, is that the moratorium bandwagon we're talking about, or the?
No, it's the sale.
Okay. So, yeah. Does anybody else on the commission want to share how they feel about this type of business? As long as we've decided we're going to get everybody's input.
Anyone want to speak up?
Well, maybe if we ask the question, and are you going into this with an open mind? I guess that's maybe a easier question for people to answer.
Mhm.
You have to go
Very
into it
good
with an open mind. There's no question about that, I would think.
Well, there's some people that may be adamantly opposed or
Mm.
completely in favor at this point.
Seeing that this has been reported in area newspapers, has anyone been approached by residents in town as to how they feel? I have, and so.
No.
Mhm, Yeah.
Well, hopefully they will speak at the hearing.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. All right, so are we at the point then where we would then put a motion on the floor to accept the recommendation of the zoning subcommittee and to close the public hearing?
Well, have we heard from the public? Is there anyone from the public?
Oh, sorry, turn the page.
Public hearing.
Here we are. Mr. Rossetti, is there anybody from the public who has indicated they would like to speak on this particular topic of enacting a one-year moratorium?
If there's anyone that would like to speak up on this matter, please raise your hand using the Zoom function.
Okay.
Alex, it seems that Peter Laskos is not a panelist at the moment.
Yeah, I keep having to add him back in. I don't know why he wants to leave our meeting so bad.
Getting from- we have the problem
There he is.
twice today in the area. where I
That's my-
lost everything on the computer, the connection, the phone wasn't working, the TV was gone.
Oh.
I'm on my
Froze.
third device right now. So.
Yeah, and I
Oh.
had trouble logging in, so I don't know if there's some interference somewhere along the way, but yeah, we saw you, Peter. I got your text message and then you disappeared. So, okay. All
No
right,
hands
so
are raised.
no hands. Are there people other than the applicants for other items on the agenda
No.
in the wait? No. Okay. All right, so go back to, is there a motion to accept the recommendation of the steering zoning subcommittee to establish a one-year moratorium and to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
All right, there's a motion from Commissioner Kelly on the floor. Is there a second?
Commissioner Parkins will second.
Okay, so on the motion from Commissioner Kelly, seconded by Commissioner Parkins, I'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Laskos,
Aye.
figured I'd get you while I could. Commissioner Tiki,
Aye.
Commissioner Amato,
Aye.
Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Parkins,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. So the motion is passed 6-0. So this will be on an agenda of an upcoming meeting for discussion. Is that correct? Attorney Tedioso? That's our next
You
to vote on.
have to vote on it, correct?
You're right, at another meeting.
If it's not on this agenda, yes.
Well, we did have it as review, discuss, and possible action. Did staff have anything prepared?
We do.
Oh, all right. Go ahead. Do you want to read what you have?
Sure. So in light of basically just the summary here of what the state has passed, staff has proposed the addition of two sections. One is to section 5 under the definition section, elaborating what a cannabis establishment is, to clarify, which is basically summarized in the state statute. The other is under the prohibited uses section. In summary, it says that cannabis establishments are, there will be a moratorium in effect for 12 months. That could have been changed, but going off the zoning subcommittee, that's what we installed. And the moratorium is for us to consider other recommendations for the commission. So I will leave this up there for people to finish reading.
Okay, could you do me a favor, Mr. Rossetti, start from the top and read it?
Yep.
The screen bounces around a little bit, so.
Sorry. Section 5, definition, section 5.4, 5.40, cannabis establishments. A cannabis establishment is a producer, dispensary, facility, cultivator, micro-cultivator, retailer, hybrid retailer, food and beverage manufacturer, product manufacturer, product packager, and delivery 19 service, but does not include a dispensary facility as provided in 56, section 21A-408-1 of the regulations of Connecticut state agencies.
Stop. What's go back, what's a delivery 19 service?
That was just what was in one of the reports for cannabis from the COG. So I'm not sure exactly, but that's
They are planning delivery service
Yeah,
correct.
Just-
So,
to allow, to make it legal.
so this isn't like Grubhub or whatever.
well, that's what is part of a cannabis establishment. There
Mhm.
are grub hubs, quote, for cannabis activities. And so this would entail that as part of this definition.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
And then as part of section 23, which is for permitted uses, there's a subsection under there for prohibited uses. And this would lie underneath the prohibited uses section. Cannabis establishments, for the reasons set forth above and notwithstanding any other provision of the zoning regulations to the contrary, the commission adopts a temporary moratorium on the acceptance of applications or the use of land or structures for a cannabis establishment and other uses related to recreational marijuana. The moratorium shall be in effect through 12 months from date of adoption or until such time as the commission adopts zoning regulation amendments that regulate cannabis establishments, whichever occurs earlier. During the moratorium period, the commission shall undertake a planning process to address the potential impacts of recreational cannabis in the city and to consider the Connecticut Department of Consumer Protection's regulation of cannabis establishments, and shall consider adopting new zoning regulations in response to these new issues. Period.
Okay, any questions for staff?
I question the use of recreational. I think the state is trying to get away from that, if I'm not mistaken, using the term adult use marijuana,
Okay.
just so that it doesn't appeal to younger,
Mhm.
like it's being marketed to a younger
Right.
population.
Vaping or something. Yep.
So
Okay.
you can verify that in terms of regulations, but I just know I've been reading quite a lot about that to just try to
Sure.
Mhm.
Your point.
steer it away from.
Yep.
So I think it's there twice. Does anybody have any objections to replacing recreational with adult use?
No, it's good.
Objections?
Right.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Any further questions for Attorney Tedioso or Mr. Rossetti, Mr. Panico?
I'll just say, if we don't know what a delivery 19 means, maybe just skip the 19.
Is there something that you could Google? Or, let's see. I can come up with something. It says.
I don't see any reference to that.
When I Google deliver 19 service, it changes it to 19 delivery services in your shelter.
So we will
Yeah.
exclude the 19 and we
Yeah.
will change the recreational to adult use.
Yeah, that's. No, nothing there. Okay. All right, so. Is there anyone that wants to look out? Sorry, Alex, can you put that sheet back up, please?
Oh, sorry, 1 second. I closed it out.
Okay, and just hit the minus by the 100% just to shrink it a bit. So it's all there. All right. So any further discussion on the proposal and the establishing this particular language in our zoning regulations?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, hearing none, it's then appropriate then to ask for a motion to adopt these regulations.
I'll make a motion, Commissioner Laspos, as modified.
Okay, so
Right.
motion to approve and add these regulations to our zoning regulations as modified.
Madam Chairman,
Yep. Go
if you
ahead.
go down in that text, you'll see the actual action motion that I suggest you utilize.
Okay. Let's get the page up there. I didn't know it was there.
I also just did find an article, cannabis delivery service businesses can now apply for licenses in Connecticut. This was issued in February. So there is a separate
service.
application online for that. But you need a user and ID, and I'm not going, I'm not going there,
Hmm. Well, we could.
but it doesn't reference the 19 in the text of the article. So I would not worry about it.
Mhm. Well, if we should find out something, we could amend this I would think at a later point.
Good.
So, all right, is there another page then that Attorney Teodoso was referencing, Mr. Rossetti? Where the actual
You lose Alex?
You can scroll down.
Oh,
keep going.
Okay.
Well, that's page two of
sorry.
two.
Yes. Right, sorry, my microphone.
Right there,
disconnected.
23.24.
All right, so that would be the resolution in effect.
Yes,
All right, so is there a motion to adopt section 23.2.4 cannabis establishments for the reasons set forth above, and notwithstanding any other provision of the zoning regulations to the contrary, the commission hereby adopts a temporary moratorium on the acceptance of applications or the use of land or structures for a cannabis establishment and other uses related to recreational marijuana,
Adult
and
use
that is going
marijuana.
to be adult use marijuana. The moratorium shall be in effect from 12 months from date of adoption or until such time as the commission adopts zoning regulation amendments that regulate cannabis establishments, whichever occur earlier. During the moratorium period, the commission shall undertake a planning process to address the potential impacts of adult use cannabis in the city and to consider the Connecticut Department of Consumer Protection's regulation of cannabis establishments, and shall consider adopting new zoning regulations in response to these issues. So Commissioner Laskos, you're in agreement to move this particular?
Yeah, just one final comment on that. Wherever it says marijuana, that's more of a slang term now. It shouldn't say cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
Good catch.
Okay,
I
so.
want to include that in my as modified motion for acceptance of this.
Okay, so it would be not recreational marijuana, and the fourth type line down, it would be adult use cannabis. And the next place is third line from the bottom, instead of recreational cannabis, it would be adult use cannabis. Again, are those the only two places you see? I believe so.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so as amended, this particular section is what the Commissioner Laskos has made a motion for approval, as we've discussed, modified in those instances where we're talking about marijuana versus cannabis and recreational versus adult use. So is there someone that would like to second this particular motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, so on the motion made by Commissioner Laskos to adopt section 23.2.4 as amended, made by Commissioner Laskos, seconded by Commissioner Kelly. I'll do a roll call. Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Laskos,
Aye.
Commissioner Tiki,
Aye.
Commissioner Motto,
aye.
Commissioner Parkins,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye.
Effective
Okay.
April 1st.
Say that again, Mr. Rossetti?
Effective April 1st.
Effective April 1st, okay. Okay, I believe that's it on this particular agenda item. Okay, so thank you, Attorney Teodoso, for joining us.
you're welcome.
Okay.
Good to see all of you. Good night.
Good
Good night.
night.
No,
All right, so next on the agenda is initiation of application 2204. Fred Monahan. Commissioner Motto, would you read the legal notice, please?
sure. Initiation of application 22-04, Fred Monahan, for a text change of Schedule A, line 10A, to permit farm stands and commercial activity in a greater capacity on farmland in R1 and R1A zones.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Motto. This application was accepted for review on March 8th, 2022, and posted on the city's website is the text amendment change. Mr. Rossetti, were there any other reports, materials, or correspondence received within the time period for this application that need to be acknowledged for the record?
We're not.
No, okay. And I see Attorney Bellis on the screen. Attorney Bellis, are you representing Mr. Monahan?
I am, yes. Good evening, everybody.
Just identify yourself for the record.
Commissioner, I'm Attorney Stephen Bellis, and I represent the applicant Fred Monahan. I've also represented the farmers market for many, many years in Shelton. The reason for this text amendment is that farming in New England has changed. It's not the same as it was in 1922 as it is in 2022. And a lot of towns have adopted what we call agritourism. And agritourism is a definition. The definition is any agriculturally based operation or activity that brings visitors to a farm. And the reason that that is done is to get a couple things. One is to make people aware of farming in the town. It's also a way to keep farms economically viable in towns. And Shelton's been doing it for a long time. They may not have used the word agritourism, but you all know it. Stone Gardens has had the turkeys that we buy at Thanksgiving and also sells vegetables that it grows. Terry Jones and his farm had first started with Christmas trees, then changed to pumpkins for Halloween, and then with his son Jamie with wine tasting and so on. Brad Wells over at Fairview has done what we call Legends of Fear, which is a hayride that's kind of haunted, and that gets people to come to the farm. So that we've been doing it in Shelton for quite some time. The State Department of Agriculture has recently stated that they are trying to encourage towns to have food programs or food sources that are local. And I can go on, but the crux of it is that it helps with the supply chain because the food is grown right in town and sold to the consumers that are in town. It also helps with cutting down on transportation costs, and that helps the environment. So there's been a big push from the state through the agricultural department. There have been articles in the newspaper trying to encourage towns to do this. So with having said all that, and I'm not going to go into all the reasons, but what we don't have in Shelton is a text or a regulation that allows a larger farm stand on property. We do have a regulation, that I would call it like the lemonade stand. We do have something like that, but we don't have anything that we think meets the definition of a farm stand. So I have met with staff and Tony Panico, and we are proposing to change our regulations by adding a line called 10A in our regulations. And 10A comes after 10, which is the smaller farm stand. So this proposal, I would suggest, is only applicable in the R1A and R1 zones. And so when you go across the chart, you will see that this new thing would only be applicable. Oh, thanks, Alex. See, we have a 10 and you see the P's. P means permitted. So we would be adding a line 10A. And the 10A line would read as follows. It would be for farmland with 10 acres or more. So rather larger plots, not little 1 acre building lots. Farmland with 10 acres or more may have a building to sell farm produce, packaged meat and poultry, and other products with 50% of the sales produced on premises, that means on the 10 acres, or in Shelton. The building may contain a refrigeration, a kitchen, and shall not exceed 6,000 square feet. And we would be using the same setbacks as set forth in Schedule B. So Schedule B are the standard setbacks in an R1 and R1A zone. So those wouldn't change. So we have, that's basically lines 6, 7, 8, and 9 would be the same in the zone. And then I have added that there shall be parking of not less than 1 space per 150 square foot gross floor area. So, and that kind of comes from our parking regulations that we have. So what we're proposing is allowing a farm stand that will sell produce that's either grown on the site or in the town of Shelton. And the idea is that it's going to be on larger tracts of land. And this helps, I think, the town keep some of the larger tracts. It makes it more attractive, I should say, as an option for someone to want to farm the larger tracts so that they can make money by selling the produce or selling to the public. And so I think I think this town has a good mix, and what always attracted me to the town, and that was 40 years ago, was that there were these nice open tracts of farmland. So we're trying to preserve that in a way that allows the farmer to make money and to have people come visit the farm and see how pretty it is or how nice it may be. So that's the purpose of this text amendment. I don't
Attorney
know
Ellis,
that
I have a question when you're done.
Yeah, I don't want to monopolize all your time. I'm just trying to explain the rationale of why we're doing it. Go ahead. I'll answer any questions. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Well,
Harder.
in that text amendment where it says farmland with 10 acres or more to sell these certain items and other products with 50% of sales produced on premises. Did you mean 50% of product produced on the premises?
Well, no, I meant of the business's sales. So if you sold $1,000 worth of goods, $500 would have to be 50% of those sales would have to come from the farm or from Shelton.
From products produced in Shelton or on the farm?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, I think that language needs to be
It's
clarified.
very ambiguous.
Yeah, it is.
It needs a lot of work. What does the word produced mean? You mean grown or manufactured?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it matters.
Yeah. So produce is usually associated with vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
Packaged meat would be something along the lines that I would consider like cows and yeah, probably cows. I don't know. There might be other packaged meat. I'm not sure about pork. And poultry is obviously the chicken or turkeys.
So, further down, that last type line, Schedule B, line 6, 7, 8, and 9.
Yep.
Maximum height is line 6, so it can't be any taller than 40 feet in either R1 or R1A. The minimum setback from a street line is 50 in R1A and 40 in R1. The minimum setback from the rear line is 50 in R1A and 30 in R1. And the last one is line 9, minimum setback from side or other property is 50 in R1A and 30 in R1.
No problem.
That's correct. We didn't change any of the setbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Why
Okay.
do
Whatever
we
they are in
cite
the
it?
underlying zone, the
Why
building
do
would
you
have.
feel the need to cite that then, Steve?
I just wanted to
It's
be
a
upfront with the,
building.
yeah, I
That's
just wanted to be upfront with the commission so that they know that the setbacks would be the same as any other building in that zone.
Mm-hmm. I don't think we gave you a chance to have you further define, what do you mean by production?
I think I used the word production. I think I said produce or products, right?
Well, again, I think somewhere or other, it's got to be said that you're talking about the meaning of those terms in agricultural terms.
Can I jump
correct.
in
I
here?
mean,
Yeah.
if somebody makes
Just a second.
gadgets somewhere and they sell them here at this building and it accounts for 50%, then they've qualified.
I missed that, Tony. I just didn't hear what you said. That's all.
No, I'm saying, unless you nail it down to something that has to do with farming, suppose arts and crafts that are produced locally are brought in and sold, and they happen to be good selling, and they make up 50%.
It says sell farm, the word farm, produce, comma, packaged meat and poultry. So it all is related to farm. It has the
And
word
other
farm.
products.
You know, the products.
And
Yeah,
other
other
products.
products are like honey, and there are other products.
You
We
definitely have
just need to be
specify.
sure, because we understand it today, but 10, 15 years, are they going to understand what we meant by that limitation? Or is somebody going to pick it up and say, hey, that's what the word says,
Insert the word food.
or agriculturally related?
Yeah,
or something?
I'm open to any suggestions that you think might be helpful.
It needs work, Steve. That's all I'm saying.
All right, Mrs. Monahan, I think you
Hi.
had indicated you would like to speak, so please identify yourself for the record and your address.
Oh. Could I just,
Okay.
I wanted to comment on the parking. I figured out that that's 40 parking spaces. It seems like a lot. I don't know if you picture that as being paved, that's a pretty big area of parking. So I don't know if anybody else.
Yeah, again,
Your calculation is correct. 6,000 divided by 150 is 40 spaces.
It would be like Beardsley's farm, though.
Yeah, we have.
One cat,
Oh,
basically.
Well,
Steve,
the new lot by Beardsley's cider mill, you mean?
Yeah,
Okay.
Chairwoman, if I may
All
ask
right.
a question as well?
All right, go ahead, Commissioner Parkins.
So how does this differ from Beardsley Cider Mill or Guy's Echo Garden? How is this? I'm being led to believe it's a commercial operation, like a Lyman's Farm maybe, but much smaller, 6,000 square feet. But I'm having a hard time differentiating this between this and Beardsley Cider Mill, which obviously is allowed. So what's the difference here?
I don't know that I can comment on how that is zoned, Commissioner Parkins. I don't know the answer to that. I know that, I don't know what was pre-existing non-conforming. I don't know all. I can't go on and
Well,
tell
it's not
you.
that old, so
Yeah.
there's got to be regs that address it. I'm just wondering what the difference is and why the regs have to be changed to accommodate this.
Maybe it's a different zone, not an R.
I don't know.
All right, well, staff definitely investigate that, but Mrs. Monahan, I believe you had some information to share.
Well, so I wanted to comment on,
Okay, you have to identify yourself for the record.
okay,
Your
I'm
address.
Stasha Monahan, 83 Sawmill City Road, Shelton, Connecticut. Also with me is my husband, Fred. He's just slightly off camera here right now because we're sharing the computer.
Mhm.
Same address, and also my son, Tommy, who's part of the business too. So I wanted to comment on a few things with this. I wanted to clarify farm products, what farm products might mean, because it seemed like Mr. Panico might have been, he's not understanding maybe what we do or what other farms may produce and consider farm products. So farm products to us are our beef, our pigs, our cows, chickens, turkeys, all the meat that we raise from that. We also have friends who live in other towns who raise goats and lamb, and maybe even in this town too, but we'd like to sell that also. So that wouldn't be something we raise And that would be on the other 50% of things that maybe we're buying in to sell, small portion of it. But farm products to us also mean prepared foods. We grow an awful lot of eggplant and tomatoes during the summer months that we process and freeze so that we can make prepared foods throughout the whole year to sell in our farm stand. Eggplant rollatini, eggplant parmesan, all from eggplant that we grow on our fields in Shelton. The other thing with the tomatoes, we grow tomatoes that we process into salsa, tomato sauce, Bloody Mary mix. Those are year-round farm products.
We make dinners out of with those tomato products in them in the middle of the winter, year round.
Sir, you need to identify yourself for the record.
I'm sorry, I'm Fred Monahan.
Okay.
Maybe if I push this back a little more, we can get them in the screen, but I'm not sure about that. So that is one thing I wanted to clarify. Like, there's a whole range of farm products. Farm products aren't just produce or meats, but value added products that we can create from our farm that are in demand to the public. And it's not just us. The reason behind this is looking at all other farm stands and then reading the regulations. Every large scale farm and farm in town who has a farm stand doesn't seem to fit the regulations as they're in place. And we're looking at just trying to update things into the year 2022.
Okay. Mrs. Monahan, when you talk about preparation, are you slaughtering and preparing whatever meat products you have on site? Cutting, trimming, whatever?
We are currently cutting and trimming all of our beef and pork products on site. The slaughtering for those products is done off-site at a USDA facility.
Okay. So you get the big sides of beef or something.
Yeah, our animals come back to us.
We load them on a trailer, we send them up to Stafford Springs, and then they come back in quarters.
Oh, okay. All right. Cutting and trimming. All right, only. Okay. All right. One of the thoughts that had come to my mind was the way that this reads. It's that to permit farm stands and commercial activity, and that just and then you go into to include farm produce, packaged meat, poultry, and other products, and you ask that refrigeration and kitchen be allowed. To me, that sounds more like a retail grocery store than a farm stand. I think part of the problem is the way that it was described. To me, a farm stand is a little bit more sophisticated than someone who has a large garden and they produce more than the household can consume, and they put extra tomatoes or zucchini on a table at the end of their driveway, but not as sophisticated as an operation where refrigeration in a kitchen is needed. So I looked up what a definition of a farm stand is, and it is located near a farm or on a farm, typically run and owned by one farmer. And in addition to seasonal produce, they may also offer for sale things like homemade preserves and pickles, honey, baked goods. And I have been to Stone Garden, so I see your prepared meals that are to be taken home and further put in the oven. So, I think the definition really needs to be tightened up a bit so that there's no question as to if this was to go forward, exactly what would be permitted.
I don't think it's a Commissioner Hardry. I have no problem with the board giving suggestions, and obviously I have no pride of authorship in making sure that it happens. But I think sometimes you have to be careful that if you get too specific, then you're not going to put pickles and you're not going to put tomatoes, and so I did not use the word farm stand in my text amendment. And again, the whole purpose of this is to allow people to come to these farms and allow the farmers to make a profit. If these things don't happen, then it's unlikely that people want to invest and buy the farmland, which is nowadays, as we all know, rather expensive in Shelton. And you're going to get, and I'm not against it, but you're going to get subdivisions and you're going to get other kinds of uses. So the purpose of this is not to limit it so that the person can't make any sales. It's just to make it so that it's more in line with our regulations. And that's why I didn't answer Commissioner Parkin's questions. I don't know, and I don't want to say anything. I don't know why, or, what other people have in town, whether it's legal or not legal. It's not for me to decide. But I would like a regulation, and I think the farmers have said to me, look, before we invest $1 million or more in buying some land, we want to know what we can build on it, Steve. And I'm like, well, not a lot right now if you look at your regulations. So that's why we need it.
How was it that in the first text amendment, it says farmland with 10 acres or more? How was 10 acres arrived at? Is that some magic number?
I spoke with Tony Panico, and we had the idea that this would be used for larger tracts of land, and we came up with 10 acres.
Okay, I didn't know if it was like a cost versus benefit kind of analysis.
No, not that sophisticated.
Yeah. All right.
About the same acreage you need for chickens, right?
Used to be.
Know about the chickens, I don't know. We didn't want it for little 1 acre parcels or 2 acre parcels. That wasn't the purpose of this, so.
Yeah. What, how do other commissioners feel?
I personally have no objection to the kind of products that they're talking about, including the prepared meals and things that would require refrigeration. I think it's lovely to see, frankly. And I think probably a lot of people in the public appreciate that kind of availability, that kind of products that they can have that are fresh and homemade or locally made and delicious. And I don't see any problem. I think maybe we should talk about the et cetera kind of portion. I could see a business like this, wanting to do gifts, gift kinds of things, and it could turn into something quite a bit different than what we think we're talking about. But I probably wouldn't object to those things either, but
Right, at the beginning.
The concerns of staff has always been not what the good intentions of our people are. But what happens, how can somebody abuse the regulations?
Sure.
And how do we stop them then?
Right.
If we don't have tight enough regulations, then we don't have tight enough control.
Well, if this is to sell agricultural products, then just adding the word food, agricultural food products.
So how would you feel if you had a beautiful house in the R1 zone and a farm right next door to you suddenly builds an 8,000 square foot building,
Well,
the
they can only
minimum
have
distance
6.
from your line, and parks 35 or 40 cars there, and has various things going on that you never contemplated in your wildest imagination could happen in an R1 zone.
True.
And maybe those setbacks should be looked at differently. If you're talking about a 10-acre piece, maybe this kind of thing should be quite a bit farther away from the edges.
Well, we have some situations though where farms have been acquired and subdivided. That means the land next to them is probably farmed also. And there's other things where acreage, it can be termed as a farm and not be a bona fide farm as we would think of it. So we understand the concerns of the applicant. We want to work with them, but we also need to protect the city against the unscrupulous user.
Right.
Yeah,
that's why we play devil's advocate.
Right, because this zone change doesn't just apply to this. It applies to any further
this,
applicants.
but it can also mean this, this, and this. Tell me why I can't do this, this, and this. So we've got to keep we've got to keep that agricultural theme built into this.
Yeah, I have no problem with anything
I
that.
know, I
any of you
understand
have
that,
said.
Steve, but
Yeah.
whether this does it or not, I have a lot of reservations.
Mhm.
But I think it's possible that it can be tailored.
Mhm.
You know? We just have to choose our words better.
So at some point, should this particular application be split into two actions like we did for Dogtopia, where we approved the change, but they had to come back to approve the use?
Well, you have to change the
So,
methodology by which it happens.
Yeah.
The way I understand this, Commissioner Harder, would be that this is a text amendment and it would go in our zoning regulations. And then someone who wants to actually do something under this
Mhm.
regulation has to come in with a site plan approval.
Right. Yeah.
That's what it says. So
Yeah, so we're looking
this
to-
requires a site plan approval. So the commission would say, oh, okay, I see what you want to do. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Site plan
is just a
approval
text.
doesn't necessarily allow you to start arguing about the use.
Yeah, so are we sending this back to staff, back to the applicant and staff to work on this language? Is that what we're?
That's why I wanted to have the hearing. If there's any suggestions or any input that you all have, as I said, I'm open to suggestions. If there's a word or like, I think Commissioner Motto said, perhaps the parking was, maybe there's a little too much parking. So maybe instead of 150 feet, you could change that to 200 feet, stuff like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Or make some of it not paved?
That's
Yeah,
a big
yeah, I
part
didn't
of
use the word
words.
paved.
Yeah, no, you didn't, but I,
But
Yeah,
yes.
I wouldn't pave it.
yeah.
If it is
Gravel.
all-
Some way, somehow, we've got to figure out a way to accomplish what you want to accomplish and yet protect the city.
Mhm.
I'm okay with that.
Well, I think it starts, for one thing, I think it starts with some level of approval that's greater than just site plan approval. I think unfortunately, if you want it to be as wide open as you have tried to define it here, then it really needs to be a special exception process.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's okay.
I
I
think,
understand the
Steve,
concept.
I think maybe some of the standards that you think you can live by and does what you want to do, maybe they can be incorporated into a special paragraph in the special exception regulations.
Mhm. My concern is the size of the building.
Well, that's the other thing you gotta, 6,000 square feet, that's a building 60 by 100.
Mhm.
you know.
That's like IGA up in Whitehall.
No, far from it.
No,
No, well,
Oh,
my house
no
is
way.
like what, 2,400 square feet?
We already have, we
Two and a half
already have a
times.
4,000 square foot building on Sawmill City Road.
I'm sorry, say that again?
We have a 4,000 square foot building on Sawmill City at our farm, and it's not.
Is that the
Anyway.
section where the retail operation is, or does it include the building,
That's, no, where the retail is, yes.
just the retail?
The retail is 750 square feet, but the building that supports the retail operation is a total of 4,000 square feet.
Mm-hmm, okay. Yeah, I think that needs
And-
to be addressed for sure.
And that's where, when we were looking at this, we said, well, it doesn't make sense because we started talking to Alex about potential other thoughts, and what we have now wouldn't necessarily meet regulations, and what most other farms in Shelton have right now wouldn't meet the regulations as they're written. So our thought was to help to update them and bring them into this century.
Mhm.
well, they would still be subject to the zone as the time that they went into operation, not the new regulations would not apply to them.
Mhm.
Does your existing building, what does it look like? Does it have a farm flavor to it, or is it a steel building?
It's a steel building, but it
It's a
looks
pole
like
barn.
a barn. It's
It's
a pole barn.
that was
Does it
built
look,
by the
does it look more like a barn?
Yes.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, it looks definitely like a barn with pergola out in front. I think, Jimmy, you've been there.
Yes, it definitely has the vibe of a farm and has the feeling that you're on a farm. It's very much consistent with agriculture uses.
Yeah, that's why I think a special exception type process allows the commission to at least come to that conclusion that it still looks like a farm. It's not just somebody wanting to build a 6,000 square foot factory and start processing meat.
Yeah. You're referring to the facility on Sawmill City Road?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
he was talking
I've been there. We really enjoyed going there a couple times last summer for corn. So
Exactly.
can't wait till this year.
I think
So,
the chairwoman had a point that I wonder if we take the process we took with Dogtopia. I mean, it does seem to us where there's two issues. There's the regulation piece, which, you know, is on us to protect the city, as Mr. Panosco is talking about. But and then there's this matter at hand, which, you know, would be great. It adds a value to town. People would really enjoy getting those agricultural products and foods and getting them prepackaged, and the services that it provides already really could be expanded. But it looks like it needs to be just some tweaking of the regulation. So I do wonder if we deal with the regs and then separately deal with this as we would with any other applicant on a case by case basis. But this would be a real value add for folks in Shelton if this were to happen with this particular applicant, and then the food and the agriculture services that they would be providing.
yeah, this is a bonus for area residents. Stone Gardens has gone over so well, and there's been so many positive comments on the quality of the items that they have. So that's definitely a plus here.
Plus it keeps open land too.
Yeah,
You know,
and
10 acres.
the
Well,
thing
we
is,
farm.
it's like, where exactly would this be situated? That is more of a concern for me than what would be done on it. Although we got to be careful as to what.
That's why I like Tony's suggestion about a special exception, because it does give us a little bit more, I don't want to say control, that's not the word I'm looking for, but a little bit or more oversight,
Definition,
you know,
yeah.
to watch
Yeah.
out for those bad actors
Mhm.
in the future or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, 6,000 square feet is really not, in my estimation, what they're looking to do is not a large building. And if you're going to have a kitchen in it, you know, it can't be tiny with a kitchen. And I'm just curious, are you also planning to do the food preparation there, that for the foods that you're packaging in that kitchen, or is this going to become like a?
Oh, definitely. The kitchen over there would be for preparing meals for sale over there.
Okay.
And the kitchen that we built here, the state of Connecticut Department of Agriculture actually gave us a $50,000 grant for, because that's a big part of Connecticut agriculture is the
Value-added products.
value-added products.
Yeah,
which is what
I
the
did read about
kitchen
that.
is.
Congrats on that.
Yeah, that was, a big part of what we did with this building here. So we just want to be able to.
Could somebody explain a little bit more to me about the prepared meals side of it? Do you prepare meals for sale on the premises, or do you prepare meals to haul off to sell someplace else?
Oh, no, they're all prepared here from stuff that is grown here, and then it's sold here.
It's sold there, okay.
Yeah,
So,
it's-
mostly cold for people to take home and warm up for dinner, or breakfast or lunch, or however they want to do it. It's kind of like a grab and go, but family style and home cooked, very country-ish themed dinners, something that you'd find from your
Okay,
grandmother's
but
kitchen.
The customer comes to the premises and buys the material, buys the dinners from you. and
Yes.
Buys are ready
Or
to,
picks them up at any rate.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
all packaged and ready, weighed and priced.
they take it home and they heat it up and they've
Okay.
got dinner.
Yeah.
And that's 100% of it?
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah, it's not like Zappardi's Pizza in West Haven where you can go in Big Y in Derby and pick up some frozen pizzas from them. It's not like they would be producing.
No, we don't sell our products to any
Yeah.
other store.
Yeah, it's,
If you get sausage and
Stays here.
peppers, if you get sausage and peppers, it's sausage that my son made
Mhm.
and peppers that we grew and.
Yeah.
the
but this isn't
tomatoes
a
that-
production facility by any means to sell in other outlets, establishments, retail, whatever.
No,
Or just so I better understand Steve's definition also. everything you're talking about here is your sales, and you're leaving flexibility for some of the resources of those items to come from off-site. Is that right?
Yes, because some of the things that we bring in complement the food that we sell. So we bring
Right.
in, we grow salad greens, we bring in salad dressings that are made made locally in Massachusetts. Mustards to complement the sausages, barbecue sauces, some that are made right here in Shelton that we
But you could
resell
also
to
bring-
complement
You
our
could
meat.
also bring in meat products, right?
No, the meat's pretty much all of our own.
But we are
Well,
looking
except
to
for the lamb and goat, you said.
that
Well,
that we're
that would be
that we're
something we would
looking to bring
sell.
in if we have extra space to
But-
sell
But
it.
it is important that everybody understand, you're bringing the materials in, and it may come from Shelton or elsewhere, 50%, with the 50% rule, but the product is going out at the premises there.
Correct.
Okay,
100%.
okay.
Tony, you also, I think, mentioned the aesthetics of the building, which I think is important, that it not be, like you say, just a steel box. Is there a way that the regulation can address that specifically, or does special exception allow that kind of requirement, or is,
Well, it depends on how we write it.
yeah, so it'd have to be more specified, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking that it's, after hearing all this, there's still some work that needs to be done on this. Probably it's most appropriate to continue the public hearing and direct staff to work with the applicant.
It's probably a good idea.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. I don't want to take up all your time, but I did want to get some input, and I think I've taken some pretty good notes, so I know where you guys are all headed, or concerns, I should say. Yeah.
And one of the things too that I think you have to keep in the back of your mind while we're saying minimum of 10 acres, unless the city buys the development rights to it, what if at some point the ownership of the property changes hands and a new owner says, oh, I don't need all 10 acres. I'm gonna reduce it by half or a third or something like that. So it's.
And it would become a non-conforming use,
Mm,
and it would be subject to a cease and desist order.
mhm.
No, that'll be after the fact though, unfortunately. So
Yeah. So, and that's what.
that causes hardships to people. Is there something that can be, I don't know, deed restricted or something like that, or I don't know, some sort of,
Well, this is,
because a 6,000 square foot building, you're not picking up and moving it.
Mm-mm.
no one's moving the building, no.
Unless we have a tornado coming through.
We're not in Oz.
And I
We
assume,
had an earthquake in Shelton a number of years ago.
again, I don't like to be the bad guy all the time, but I assume we're talking about one 6,000 square foot building.
Yeah.
Not a huge complex that
Accumulation
can have
of-
3 or 4 or 5 6,000 square foot.
No,
buildings.
that wasn't the intent.
Okay.
The intent was to have
Yeah.
one
Again,
building,
I'm
not
just
two.
telling you how you can misread regulations, you know?
All right, so if we don't have anything further from the commission, Mr. Rossetti, is there anybody from the public that indicates that they would like to make comments on this proposal? I think I see one.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thomas Harbinson, 15 Soundcrest Drive, Chairman of the Conservation Commission. We have not reviewed this text amendment, but I can tell you from my over 2-decade history with the Conservation Commission that we would generally support it. I can also tell you from my vocation role that the term other products can be of great value to a farming operation. For instance, if the farmer wanted to sell a sweatshirt with their carrot logo that said no farms, no food, like I see somebody wearing right now, that might be something that a patron that is a loyal patron might want to purchase. And that's obviously not a produce product. So I would consider things like that, or in the wintertime, maybe somebody wants to buy a wreath. That's not something that's produced there. The same thing can be said for some other farms in town. Maybe East Village Farm has produced some soaps or some woolen skeins. and would like to be able to utilize this as an outlet to get that in front of the public for sale. So the term other products or value-added products is not, it seems broad, but as a location that would be concentrating on farm agricultural products, I can see how that can be maybe tightened up, but it's an important aspect to have a customer guest maybe make an ancillary purchase to be a profitable operation. Further, I would say is having visited many farms across North America as part of the North America Farmers Direct Marketing Association, I've seen numerous farms in California, Indiana, Atlanta, Maryland, Connecticut, and then just personally beyond. The concept of a barn structure to be, a quaint New England red with white trim barn is not the same throughout the country. And there are many corrugated steel prefab type buildings that are customarily what you see on a agricultural property that can look quite appropriate for an agricultural type purpose, but require a lot less maintenance than a post and beam constructed barn with wooden shakes that you have to paint every couple of years. So I just encourage you to be broad in your thinking as to what constitutes the look and feel of a farm.
Okay.
And it's exciting to see all the efforts that the Planning and Zoning and the Board of Aldermen and many others have done for over the years to not only preserve property in town so that it can be used for agricultural purposes, but to give the encouragement that they cooperate with one another, like has been happening with Stone Gardens, using produce from other farmers in town. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Anybody else, Mr. Rizzetti? If there's any members of the public who wish to comment on this application, and you have not already done so, please use the Zoom raise your hand feature.
Going once, going twice. Okay.
Okay. All right, so we just, I brought up that it would seem that it may be beneficial for staff and the applicant to further refine this.
No, I have no problem with that, and we'll come back next month, and we may have some text changes, but that's fine. And then if that's okay with the commission, I have no problem with keeping the meeting open and working with your staff. And I appreciate everyone sharing, so I know where, what the concerns are, so I can try to address it.
Okay. So is there a commissioner who would like to make a motion to continue the public hearing for application 2204?
Commissioner Ticky, I'll motion to keep the public hearing open.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it, Commissioner Laskos.
Thank you very much. So on the motion to continue the public hearing made by Commissioner Ticky and seconded by Commissioner Laskos, I'll do a roll call. Commissioner Motto? Aye. Commissioner Kelly?
Aye.
Commissioner Parkins?
Aye.
Commissioner Ticky?
Aye.
Commissioner Laskos?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Motion to continue pass 6-0. Thank you, Attorney Bellis. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Monahan.
Thank you all very much. See you next month.
Keep that corn coming.
Oh, it's starting soon.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so this item will be on the agenda of an upcoming meeting. All right, next on the agenda is application 2129, Russo and Rizzio LLC for 79 Platt Road LLC for text change to Schedule A permitted uses, line 45A, to permit building contractor businesses and storage yard by special exception in the IA-2 zone. We accepted this for review on January 11th. We had a public hearing opened on February 23rd. All the material was posted on the city's website. On March 23rd, we discussed a revised amendment from the applicant. And then we closed the public hearing and directed staff to review the revised amendment to determine the appropriate wording and prepare a favorable resolution for action at an upcoming meeting, which is today's meeting. So, Mr. Rizzetti, do you have any further comments, or are we moving directly to review the resolution prepared by Mr. Panico?
1 second, Madam Chair, there's someone raising their hand. Uh, Hello, Patrick.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good evening. I'm Pat Riddle. I live off of Wabuda.
So let me-
I live
Whoa,
on
whoa,
Morgan
whoa,
Court.
Hang on,
whoa,
hang
whoa,
on.
time out. No more talking. We have closed the public hearing. We cannot take any further comments from anyone. So,
at
is-
the next meeting.
We actually have continued the public hearing, Chairwoman, so perhaps at our next time we take that up, that member from the public could join us.
And when is that meeting that is published?
That meeting will be sometime at the end of April.
are we talking about the storage contractor yard application or the previous one having to do with the Monahans?
Monaghan's.
With the Monahans, okay. All right,
So I'm sorry for the interruption there, Patrick, but the commission closes session on that hearing for tonight. So please hold your comments, or if you want to write the zoning office a letter, feel free to do so. But we will gladly accept your comments at the next meeting or in writing.
yeah, we
Okay, well-
continue the public hearing for the Monahans application. So your comments can be submitted to the commission office by email, letter, dropped off in person. You could deliver them in person at the continuation, which will be scheduled by staff. Because we will accept them then as well, but we have finished our discussion on the application right now, and we've moved on to the next agenda item.
Okay, well, I had put the hand up and I wanted to comment, so we'll write the comments down and deliver them.
Okay. All right. All right, so Mr. Rossetti, I was asking, do you have any further comments, or are we moving directly to review the resolution on the storage yards prepared by Mr. Panico?
No further comments. You may proceed.
Okay, so Mr. Panico, you
All
have
right.
prepared a resolution?
Yeah, I think I've got a copy here. We had a pretty good discussion the night of the hearing, so it was relatively simple to just pull it together under proper zoning format. This is application 2129, petition of Attorney Russo and Rizzio LLC on behalf of 79 Platt Road LLC for a proposed amendment to Schedule A permitted uses by establishing a new use line 45A to permit building contractors' businesses by special exception in the industrial IA2 zone. By way of background, the petitioner, Attorney Russo, has submitted a petition to amend the zoning regulations, Schedule A permitted uses, by adding a new use line 45A to allow building contractors' businesses in the industrial IA2 zone, subject to the approval of a special exception. Said use is currently permitted only in the industrial IB1 and IB2 zones, and by site plan approval in the commercial CB1 and CB2. The intent of the amendment is to allow small local contractors the ability to occupy space within a building in the industrial IA2 zone to store their vehicles and supplies. Locations currently zoned for such contractors' businesses are limited in the city, resulting in numerous landscapers, carpenters, plumbers, electricians, and similar small building contractors attempting to satisfy their needs at their place of residence, in many cases leading to zoning violations and neighborhood conflicts. To supplement the currently limited space availability, the proposed amendment would allow those types of uses to occupy buildings in larger industrial properties. To avoid and prevent unsightly conditions other than normal parking of registered motor vehicles for over-the-road use on a regular basis, no outside storage of supplies and materials or the outside parking or storage of idle construction equipment would be allowed. Such uses are currently accommodated by use line 45, which is the more general category, building contractors, businesses, and storage yards. but limits them only to the CB1, CB2, IB1, and IB2 zones. Without outside storage of any kind, the subject proposal is very limited in scope and potentially more acceptable also in the IA2 zone, with the ability of greater scrutiny provided under the special exception process. Upon receipt of a complete petition, the commission convened a duly noticed public hearing on February 23rd, 2022, which hearing was continued to and closed on March 23rd, 2022. At the initial public hearing, the commission requested the petitioner to incorporate specific language excluding outside storage, as well as possibly a definition of, quote, building contractors' businesses. At the March 23rd, 2022 continuation of the hearing, the petitioner presented such revised language for discussion and consideration. The commission noticed several concerns with the proposed definition, section 5.7, building contractors' businesses, relative to the accommodation of things like administrative offices, as well as prefabrication work. The commission also noted the potential conflicts that this definition creates with the less restrictive uses and activities allowed under use line 45, to which that proposed definition would also apply. There was no public testimony or public comments either for or against the proposed amendment offered at the hearings. The commission is familiar with the need for additional opportunities to accommodate such building contractor businesses in the city and the lack of adequate opportunities to satisfy those needs. Having discussed those needs and the proposed amendments in detail, the commission notes the following. 1, the proposed definition 5.7 as offered creates conflicts with use line 45 and raised other commission's concerns. Number 2, some of the additional activities cited in the definition are already allowed as permitted uses in the IA2 zone as part of other manufacturing and assembling operations, such things as the prefabrication work or administrative work. You can't have that as part of a bona fide manufacturing operation in the IB2 zone, IA2 zone. So it's difficult to say you got to highlight them and leave them out of this. If they follow the proper process, they could gain approval for that, but it would not be as part of their normal operation. Item 3, with an appropriate expansion of the wording of the permitted uses under 45A, there's no real need for the definition 5.7 as written. Now, on that basis, then, in our discussions, staff has prepared the following resolution for your consideration and possible action. Resolution, whereas the petitioner has prepared and submitted a proposed amendment of the Shelton zoning regulations to address the need for additional opportunities in the city for smaller building contractors to occupy space in a building for the indoor storage of their vehicles, equipment, and supplies with no outside storage facilities allowed. And whereas the commission held a duly noticed public hearing, commenced on February 23rd, 2022, and continued and closed on March 23rd, 2022, to consider said petition. And whereas the commission is familiar with the issues and needs, has reviewed this proposal carefully, and based on the comments set forth above, notes the following. A, the wording of proposed use line 45A should be expanded to read as follows. 45A, building contractors' businesses, specifically excluding outside storage, period. All construction equipment and materials must be stored within an enclosed building. B, definition 5.7 is not needed and must be eliminated. Now, therefore, the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission hereby adopts the subject zoning text amendment as modified above, which adoption will become effective on Friday, some Friday in April. We'll give that. And if the commission has no other questions, then you can take it from there, Madam Chairman.
All right, any questions, comments, or concerns from the commission on how the language that's in the resolution?
I just have one question of clarification. The first whereas, it references outdoor storage facilities. Is that the same thing as outdoor storage? Or is a facility a specific, or is it irrelevant because it's being taken out anyway?
I didn't see the potential misinterpretation there, but now that I read it, I can see where that's a possibility. But you're taking it out anyway.
Okay.
Let's see.
Thank you.
Especially need for small building.
Very last sentence, with no outside storage facilities allowed.
Yeah,
Correct.
I don't think we want someone
You-
to say, oh, I don't have enough space. Let me go get a storage shed from Home Depot and put it in the parking lot.
No. This is saying what you are recognizing is that there are contractors out there that need space and don't have to have outside storage.
Mhm.
Right. I just didn't want facilities to mean that, that they can put stuff out there as long as there's no like walls, holding it in or anything like
Well,
that. So
That's not
But if
the
it's-
intent, but
if
in
it's
any
not
event,
relevant-
we make it very specific in the language of the
Yep.
change.
if it's not relevant, I thank you for the clarification.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the commission?
I'm fine with the wording.
Okay.
Commissioner.
Commissioner Mato, is there somebody in your house that wants to make a comment?
No, that was not mine. I don't know who it was.
Puppy?
No, I don't know where that came from. My dog would be much, much louder if she had anything to say.
Madam Chairman, maybe somebody ought to move and second the resolution before we finish the discussion.
Okay, so is there a member of the commission who would like to move this particular resolution?
I'll make them up.
Go ahead.
All right, Commissioner
Commissioner
Mato?
Matt. Yeah, we'll make the motion. Yeah.
Okay, and the second?
Commissioner Parkins will second.
Thank you. All right, so any further discussion on this particular resolution? Okay, if there's no other comments, questions, or concerns, I'll do a roll call. Okay, Commissioner Mato,
Aye.
Commissioner Parkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Tiki,
Aye.
Commissioner Laskos,
Aye.
and Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Motion has passed 6-0 and the resolution has been adopted. Okay. All right, final item on the agenda is minutes for approval.
And then
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Panico.
I just wanted to get a date so we can make the resolution complete.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Alex, when do you think this can be posted?
I'm away next week, so let's do Friday, the 15th.
Which Friday, what?
The 15th, 1/5.
1/5, okay. I'll fill that in so we have a complete resolution.
Okay. All right, so as I started to say, that final agenda item is approval of the March 16th minutes. I went back and listened to a great portion of the minutes having to do with Chromium Commons. I think there were some additional language that needs to be added to the minutes. So I propose that we table approval of these particular minutes. But before we go on, is there anyone that had any corrections or comments about the minutes as they were prepared?
I did not.
Okay, all right then, is there someone that could?
Commissioner Parkins will make a motion to
motion
table
to
the minutes.
table? Okay.
Commissioner
Is there a
Ticky,
second?
second. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So on the motion to table made by Commissioner Parkins and second by Commissioner Tiki, I'll do a roll call. Commissioner Kelly,
I have to abstain because I was not present at the time.
That's fine. Commissioner Perkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Tiki,
Aye.
Commissioner Lascos,
Aye.
Commissioner Motto,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Commissioner Tiki, you faded in a little bit. Do you
Aye.
vote? Aye, okay. All right, so the motion has passed by a vote of 501. Okay, so seeing that there's no other items on the agenda, the chair declares this evening's meeting is adjourned as of 7:43 PM. Thank you, everyone. Have a
Night,
good
everyone.
night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.